Hey guys, tonight we are diving headfirst into one of the most ridiculously opulent travel vlogs in history. Except, it happened 700 years before YouTube was a thing. We are going to 14th century West Africa, a place shimmering with so much gold that it makes modern billionaires look like they are shopping with pocket change. You are not just a spectator for this one, you are the main character. You are Mansa Musa, Emperor of the Mali Empire, and you are, to put it mildly, loaded. A word of warning, though, despite the unlimited gold, there is no Wi-Fi, no air conditioning, and the plumbing is, let us say, au natural. You would probably be begging to go home by day 2. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support truly means the world. And while you are at it, I would love to know where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how this little community of ours spans the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. The air in your palace in Niamey is warm and thick, carrying the distant scent of the Niger River and the smoky aroma of cooking fires from the city that sprawls around you. You are the Mansa, the king of kings, the sovereign of an empire that stretches for thousands of miles. But right now, in the quiet of your personal chambers, you are simply a man. Your throne is not some cold, hard European-style chair of iron and stone. It is a wide, low divan, piled high with cushions covered in richly dyed cotton and silk, imported from lands you have only heard about in traders' tales. The room is not ostentatious in the way a French king might understand it. There are no vaulted ceilings or gilded mirrors. Instead, the luxury is in the craftsmanship. The walls are smooth, polished adobe, cool to the touch. Intricately woven tapestries depict scenes from the epic of your great-uncle, Cairo, the Lion King who founded this very empire. You clap your hands softly. The sound is absorbed by the thick carpets underfoot. Immediately, a servant enters, head bowed, not in fear, but in a deep, ingrained respect. He carries a bowl of fresh dates and a silver ewer of cool water. As he pours, you notice the glint of gold, not just on the cup he offers you, but woven into the hem of his own tunic. In your empire, gold is not just for kings. It is a part of the landscape, a part of the culture. You have heard stories of lands where men kill for a nugget the size of your thumbnail. Here, you use it for decoration, for trade, for gifts. You once heard a visitor remark that you could probably pave a road with it, and you remember thinking that would be a terrible waste of a perfectly good paving material. Your day is one of routine and responsibility. You hold court in a large, open-air pavilion. Citizens from all corners of your vast domain come to you with their disputes. 2 farmers argue over the boundary of a field. A merchant claims he was cheated by a partner in a distant trading post. You listen patiently, your advisors flanking you. Justice in Mali is swift and, by all accounts, fair. This is a core tenet of your rule, the foundation upon which the empire's stability is built. It is this piece that allows the trade routes to flourish, bringing salt from the north, cola nuts from the south, and, of course, carrying your gold to the wider world. In the afternoon, your guide comes to you. He is not merely a storyteller. He is a walking, breathing library. He is your historian, your genealogist, and your most trusted political counselor, all rolled into one. His memory holds the lineage of every noble family, the history of every battle, and the wisdom of every king who came before you. Today, he recites a verse about the great sky god and the earth spirits, his voice a low, rhythmic chant accompanied by the gentle plucking of his kora. This oral tradition is the lifeblood of your people's history. While scholars in other lands fill libraries with dusty scrolls, Your history lives in the songs and stories passed down through generations of these master bards. It is a far more intimate, more human way of remembering. As you look out from your veranda at the bustling capital city of Neon Eye, you cannot help but feel a sense of pride. You see the Grand Mosque, its earthen minarets reaching for the sky. You see the sprawling market, a kaleidoscope of color and sound. And yet, there is a funny little secret that the future holds. Hundreds of years from now, archaeologists and historians will spend entire careers engaged in heated debates, trying to figure out the exact location of this magnificent city you call home. They will find traces, hints, but the grand capital you see before you will become a semi-mythical place, its scale and precise coordinates a subject of endless academic argument. The city is so vibrant, so real to you, yet its physical footprint, built from the very earth it stands on, will prove maddeningly elusive to future generations. As evening falls, a trader who has just returned from a long journey across the Sahara is granted an audience. He speaks of the cities he has seen, of the great markets of North Africa, and of the wonders of Cairo, a city ruled by a powerful Mamluk sultan. He talks of its towering minarets, its grand libraries, and its scholars, and then he speaks of Mecca, the holiest of cities, the destination for all devout Muslims. A place you, as a pious ruler, are obligated to visit at least once in your lifetime. As you listen, a thought begins to form in your mind, a tiny seed of an idea. A journey. Not just any journey, but a pilgrimage befitting the Mansa of Mali. A journey to fulfill your faith. Yes, but also one to show the world the true extent of your empire's piety and its power. The seed has been planted, and you have a feeling it is going to grow into something spectacular. That seed of an idea, planted by the traders' tales of Cairo and Mecca, does not just sprout. It grows into a baobab tree in your mind overnight. The Hajj, the pilgrimage. It is a duty, one you have considered before in a vague, abstract way. But now, it feels less like an obligation and more like a calling. A grand, audacious, empire-defining calling. The next morning, the air is still cool and fresh. You summon your inner circle. Not in the grand public pavilion, but in a private chamber, the one reserved for matters of state that require nuance, not just authority. Your chief vizier is there, a man whose face is a roadmap of political wisdom, every line earned in decades of service. Your treasurer is present, a man who can mentally calculate the value of a camel caravan laden with salt from Tag Huzza faster than you can eat a date. And, of course, your griot sits quietly in the corner, his Cora resting beside him, his presence a silent reminder of the weight of history and the legacy you will one day become. You let the silence hang for a moment before you speak. We are going to Mecca. It is not a question or a proposal. It is a statement of fact, a declaration of what is to come. The vizier nods slowly, his expression unreadable. He has seen kings come and go. He knows a pivotal moment when he sees one. The treasurer, however, blinks. Once, twice. You can practically see the mental gears turning, the phantom clatter of an abacus as he begins to calculate the cost. A journey of one man is expensive. A journey for a king and his retinue is a significant line item in the imperial budget. But a journey for the Mansa of Mali, in a style befitting the ruler of the land of gold, that is another matter entirely. He clears his throat. A noble goal, my Mansa. The logistics, however, the journey is long. The desert is unforgiving. You smile. The desert has always been there. The difference is, now we will cross it. You explain that this will be no quiet, humble trek. You do not just want to fulfill your duty as a Muslim. You want to announce Mali's arrival on the world stage. For too long, you have been a whisper on the edge of the world map, a land of myth known only to the caravan masters who brave the Sahara. They come for your gold, but what do they know of your culture? Your justice, Your faith. When we arrive in Cairo, when we arrive in Mecca, you say, your voice slow but firm, there will be no doubt. They will know that the Mali Empire is not a land of savages scratching gold from the dirt. They will know us as a kingdom of power, order, and piety. It is a national PR campaign on a scale the world has never seen. Your vizier finally allows a small smile. He understands. This is not just about religion. It is about geopolitics. Yet, there is another layer to this. Something deeper and more personal that you hold close to your heart. It is a shadow, a memory that fuels your desire for this pilgrimage, for this act of grand atonement. Your guide knows the story, though he would never speak of it unless asked. Years ago, in a tragic, unthinkable accident, you were responsible for the death of your own mother, Queen Tu and Farah. The details are a blur of grief and regret, a moment of carelessness that had the most permanent of consequences. The weight of it has never left you. You have consulted scholars and holy men, and their advice echoes in your soul. Perform a great act of piety. Seek forgiveness through a gesture so profound it might wash away the stain. This Hajj, it is that gesture. This is the part of your story that future historians will endlessly debate. They will have access to the accounts of Al-Umarai, a scholar in Damascus who would later interview men who met you in Cairo. He would write down your confession about the accident, your deep remorse, and your hope for redemption. Some historians will seize upon this, arguing that your entire, extravagant journey was driven by a deeply personal guilt. They will paint you as a haunted man, throwing gold at the world in a desperate plea for divine pardon. Others will be more cynical. They will dismiss the story as a clever bit of personal branding, a tale you told to make your display of wealth seem more palatable, more piously motivated. Was it genuine remorse or a calculated narrative? Perhaps, as you sit there in the quiet council chamber, you know the truth is that it is both. The motives of a king are like a river fed by many streams. Your faith is real. Your political ambition is real. And your grief is real. They all flow in the same direction, toward the holy city. You look at your treasurer, who still seems to be in a state of mild shock. Prepare the gold. You command, not just for supplies, for gifts, for alms, for every mosque, every scholar, every poor soul we meet between here and Mecca. You want the journey to be a river of gold, flowing from the heart of Mali and nourishing the lands it touches. The treasurer finally nods, the look of a man who has just been given an impossible, yet exhilarating, task. The decision is made. The word ripples out from the palace, first to the nobles and commanders, then to the city, then carried by messengers on swift horses to every province of your sprawling empire. Mansa Musa is going on the Hajj, and he is taking the wealth of Mali with him. The preparations will take months, perhaps even a year. An entire mobile city must be conceived, funded, and assembled. It is a monumental undertaking, but as you stand and look out towards the horizon, towards the vast expanse of the Sahara that you must soon cross, you feel not dread, but a profound sense of purpose. The greatest journey of your life is about to begin. The next few months in Niani are a whirlwind of organized chaos. The city transforms into a massive staging ground for the most ambitious expedition in its history. This is not like packing for a weekend trip. This is like planning a mobile city for a journey that will span nearly 4,000 miles. One way, you have tasked your most brilliant administrators with a project that would make any modern logistics expert's head spin. The scale is almost comical. You are not just taking a few friends. You are taking a significant portion of your government and royal court. The final manifest is staggering. 60,000 people. Let that sink in. A crowd that would fill a large stadium is going to walk across the largest hot desert in the world. First, the people. There is the military escort, numbering in the thousands. These are not just ceremonial guards. They are seasoned warriors. Their duty to protect the caravan from any tour raiders or bandits who might see a 60,000-person strong golden pinata and get ideas. Then you have the civil servants, the administrators needed to keep the empire running even while you are away. You have established a regency, of course, but your key advisors must come with you. Then, there are the service providers. Cooks, doctors, blacksmiths, tanners, engineers to help with river crossings, every conceivable profession required to maintain a moving city. You even have your own personal guide and his entourage of musicians, because what is an epic road trip without a soundtrack? And then there are the 12,000 personal attendants, each one clad in fine Persian silken brocade. This detail always gets people. It is one of those facts that sounds like a fable. Why 12,000? It is a number that signifies immense power and prestige. They are not all for you. Personally, of course. They serve the various nobles, your wife, Inari Kunate, and the complex machinery of the royal household. Still, just imagining the sheer logistics of clothing, feeding, and housing 12,000 attendants is enough to cause a migraine. Now, for the cargo. The camels. Tens of thousands of them. They are the ships of the desert, the lifeblood of this expedition. Each one needs to be procured, checked for health, and assigned a load. They will carry the food, mountains of dried grains, rice, and preserved meats. They will carry the water in thousands upon thousands of goatskin bags. They will carry the tents, the cooking pots, the medical supplies, the weapons, and the endless rolls of silk and cotton for gifts and repairs. The entire market square of Neonai becomes a camel trading hub, the air thick with the smell of animals and the sound of haggling. And then there's the goal, the centerpiece of the entire operation. This is where the story tips from impressive into the realm of legend. The treasurer, now fully recovered from his initial shock and embracing the glorious madness of it all, oversees the packing of the bullion. The final number is mind-boggling. According to the accounts that will later be recorded, 100 camels are each loaded with 300 pounds of pure, glittering gold dust. That is 30,000 pounds of gold. And that is just on those specific camels. Your personal staff will carry gold as well. 500 attendants, walking ahead of you on the journey, will each carry a golden staff weighing about 4 pounds. That is another 2,000 pounds of gold right there, just for ceremonial flair. Let us pause on a strange little detail here that often gets lost in the sheer weight of all that bullion. How do you even pack 300 pounds of gold dust onto a camel? You cannot just put it in a burlap sack. It would sift out. The answer lies in sophisticated leatherwork. Malian artisans craft special, reinforced leather bags, likely double or triple lined, designed to be perfectly balanced on the camel's back. Packing the camel train is an art form in itself. The weight must be distributed with absolute precision. An imbalanced camel is a slow camel, and a slow camel can be a death sentence in the Sahara. Your caravan masters are geniuses of desert physics, knowing just how to load each beast for maximum efficiency and stability. This mundane, practical skill is as crucial to the success of your journey as the gold itself. The question of where all this money comes from is one thing, but the question of who pays for the journey itself is another. And here lies a fascinating tidbit about your empire's economy. Much of the preparation is funded not directly from your treasury, but through a system of obligation and tribute. Provincial governors are required to provide a certain number of soldiers, a quota of grain, or a herd of camels. Guilds of merchants, in exchange for protected trade routes, contribute supplies and expertise. It is a decentralized, feudal-style system of resourcing that allows the empire to mobilize on a massive scale without needing a centralized, modern bureaucracy to write checks for everything. Historians still debate the precise balance between direct taxation and this tribute system in funding the empire, but it is clear that when the Mansa calls, the entire machinery of the state, public and private, clankers into motion. As the departure date nears, neon eye is bursting at the seams. A tent city has sprung up around the capital to house the thousands of soldiers and pilgrims who have arrived from the provinces. The noise is constant. The braying of donkeys, the grunting of camels, the clang of hammers on anvils, and the murmur of 1,000 different conversations in a dozen languages. It is a logistical masterpiece, a testament to the organizational power of your empire. You stand on your balcony, looking down at the magnificent, sprawling, chaotic preparation, and you feel the weight of it all. This is not just a trip. It is a statement. Every single one of those 60,000 people, every one of those tens of thousands of pounds of gold, is a word in the message you are about to write across the face of the earth. The sheer, almost mythical, quantity of gold being packed onto your camels raises an obvious question, one that has echoed through history and still tickles the imagination of treasure hunters today. Where on earth did it all come from? You, sitting in your palace in Neon Eye, know the answer is not a single, magical vault like in a fairy tale. The gold of Mali is the lifeblood of your empire, flowing from a network of sources so rich and vast that it seems almost inexhaustible. Your primary source of wealth lies in the 3 great gold fields that fall within your imperial control: Bambuke, Biari, and Galer. These are not mines in the modern sense, with deep shafts and heavy machinery. Think of them more as vast regions where gold is simply present. For centuries, local communities have perfected the art of extracting it. You see it in the markets, brought in by traders, gleaming nuggets, some the size of a pigeon's egg, in fine, shimmering dust, cold TBR. Your empire does not directly own these mines in the way a modern corporation would. Instead, you exercise a brilliant system of control. You tax the trade. Every ounce of gold that is traded or transported through your lands has a portion that is due to you. The Mansa. Your officials are stationed at key trading posts and market towns, ensuring the empire gets its cut. It is a system that allows local chieftains to manage the mining itself, preserving their traditional ways, while ensuring the wealth flows steadily upwards into the imperial treasury. This masterful blend of direct and indirect control is the financial genius behind your power. The mining itself is a fascinating process, steeped in tradition and secrecy. Most of it is alluvial mining. During the rainy season, rivers and streams swell, washing gold down from the earth. When the waters recede, people pan for it in the riverbeds. A patient, back-breaking process of swirling sand and water until the heavier gold dust settles at the bottom. In other areas, they dig pits, following veins of gold-bearing quartz. These pits are often just wide enough for one person, descending into the earth like wells. The work is dangerous, and the miners have a whole host of rituals and beliefs to protect them. For instance, there is a widely held belief among the miners that gold is a living, almost sentient thing. They believe it can run away or hide if the proper respects are not paid to the spirits of the earth. This is a curious detail. The men digging up the most valuable commodity in the world are bound by a complex animist spirituality that coexists with the growing influence of Islam in the cities. One of the most legendary, and frankly, bizarre, stories about your gold is the tale of the gold harvesting ants. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote about its centuries earlier, and the story was later repeated by Arab geographers. The tale described a giant, furry ants in a distant land that would dig up gold dust as they burrowed, and that local people would then collect. For centuries, people in Europe and the Middle East pictured enormous insects doing the work of miners. The reality, which you would have known, is likely a misunderstanding that got wildly exaggerated over time. The ants were probably marmots or other burrowing mammals. The sandy soil they kicked up from their burrows was rich in gold dust, which local people would then collect. It is a classic case of a mundane reality being transformed into a fantastic legend through centuries of retelling. Your ultimate control over the gold, however, comes from a simple, unshakable imperial decree. All large gold nuggets belong to the Mansa. Anyone who finds a nugget larger than a certain size, say, the size of a bean, must turn it over to the royal treasury. They are compensated, of course, with an equivalent weight in gold dust. But the nuggets, the pure, solid pieces, are for you alone. This serves two purposes. First, it keeps the most valuable, most easily transportable form of wealth directly in your hands. Second, it acts as a form of market control. By keeping the nuggets out of general circulation, you help maintain the value of the gold dust that everyone else uses. It is a surprisingly sophisticated piece of monetary policy. Historians will later argue about how strictly this rule was enforced and how much nugget smuggling went on, but the principle was a cornerstone of your economic power. You controlled the big bills, leaving the small change for everyone else. This absolute dominance over the gold supply gave you a power that few rulers in history have ever possessed. While kings in Europe were constantly debasing their currency, mixing silver with cheaper metals to make ends meet, your currency was pure and universally trusted. The name Mali on a trade route was synonymous with gold. It was your empire's brand, and it was impeccable. The caravan masters who crossed the Sahara knew that the gold they received in Niamey or Timbuktu was the real deal. This reputation was worth as much as the metal itself, a foundation of trust that powered the trans-Saharan trade. So as you watch your servants and officials meticulously preparing the golden cargo for your journey, you are not just looking at a pile of treasure. You are looking at the physical manifestation of your empire's geography, its political structure, its traditions, and its reputation. Each bag of gold dust represents a riverbed pan, a pit dug, a tax collected, a nugget surrendered. It is the story of Mali, concentrated into a shimmering, teddy powder. And you are about to share that story with the rest of the world, whether they are ready for it or not. With the personnel assembled and the treasure secured, the most daunting logistical challenge looms: the route. You cannot just point your 60,000-person caravan east and start walking. You are about to cross the Sahara, a landscape so vast and hostile it is often called the Great Sea of Sand. A single miscalculation, a single dried-up well, could doom thousands. Your life and the lives of your people depend on a meticulously planned itinerary. In the Grand Pavilion, your chief geographers and caravan masters unroll enormous, hand-drawn maps onto the floor. These are not maps in the modern sense, with neat lines of latitude and longitude. They are masterpieces of practical knowledge, charts of survival. They do not just show locations, they show relationships. The distance between 2 points is not measured in miles, but in days of travel. A well is not just a dot. It is marked with notes on its reliability. Always water, brackish in the dry season, sometimes used by raiders. The map is a living document, a collection of generations of hard-won experience. The main artery you will be following is the trans-Saharan trade route, the ancient network of paths that connects your West African home to the Mediterranean world. But even this highway is not a single road. It is a braid of different paths, their usability shifting with the seasons and the political climate. The choice of which strands of the braid to follow is a matter of intense debate among your advisors. Your primary guides for this are the Twa, known as the blue men of the desert for their indigo-dyed veils that stain their skin. They are the undisputed masters of the Sahara. They and their ancestors have been crisscrossing this ocean of sand for centuries. They know its moods, its secrets. They can navigate by the stars at night, by the position of the sun during the day, and, most uncannily, by the very feel of the sand and the direction of the wind. To your court officials, they are sometimes seen as fierce and untrustworthy, but you know that their expertise is non-negotiable. You have hired the best war guides, paying them handsomely in gold and textiles, to lead the vanguard of your caravan. Their survival is your survival. The route is planned in segments, from one major oasis to the next. The first leg of the journey will take you from your capital, Niamey, north to the bustling market town of Wallet. This initial part is relatively gentle, moving through the savannah and Sahara, the transitional zone just south of the true desert. It is a good chance for the massive caravan to find its rhythm, to work out the kinks in the logistical chain before plunging into the harsh wilderness. From Wallet, the real challenge begins. You will strike out northeast towards the salt mines of Tag Haza. This leg is brutal. Tag Haza is a place literally made of salt. The buildings are carved from blocks of it. The wells are brackish, and nothing grows. It is a vital stop for the salt for gold trade, but it is one of the most desolate places on earth. After Tag Haza, your route bends east, aiming for the series of oases in what is now southern Algeria, like Tuat. Each of these stops is a lifeline. Arriving at an oasis after weeks in the sand is a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. It is the sight of the first palm tree on the horizon, the smell of water and vegetation, the blessed relief of shade. At each major oasis, you will rest for days, sometimes even a week or two. The animals must be watered and allowed to graze. The water skins must be refilled. Repairs must be made to saddles and equipment. It is also a chance for trade and diplomacy. The arrival of the Mansa of Mali and his golden caravan will be the biggest event these remote outposts have ever seen. One of the curious, and often debated, aspects of this planning is the timing. Why did you choose to depart in 1324? The seasons are everything. You must leave after the rainy season has ended, when the Niger River is still high enough to be easily navigated in the early stages, but before the blistering heat of the deep summer sets in. Your planners are experts in this desert calendar. They know the precise window of a few months each year when a journey of this scale is even feasible. Historians still analyze the climatic data of the period, trying to determine if you were blessed with a particularly mild year or if your team was just that good at their jobs. The consensus leans towards the latter. This was not a journey of luck. It was a journey of supreme competence. A fascinating piece of navigational tech your guides use as the stars. While they did not have astrolabus calibrated for a journey like this in the same way Arab sailors did, they had their own intricate system of constellations and star paths. They knew which stars rose and set in which direction at different times of the year. This celestial map, passed down orally through generations of guides, was as reliable as any compass. It is a strange thought that this massive, history-altering movement of people was guided by the same sky, the same distant points of light that you can see outside your own window tonight. The final plan is a masterpiece of logistics. It accounts for food, water, security, and rest. It balances the need for speed with the physical limitations of 60,000 people and tens of thousands of animals. It is a route that will take you across 9 modern-day countries. Looking at the finished map, a winding path of hope and danger sketched out on cured gazelle skin, you feel a mix of awe and trepidation. The path is clear. The only thing left to do is take the first step. The day of departure arrives. The air in Niamey is not just filled with the usual morning sounds of a bustling city. It is electric, humming with an energy that feels like the moment before a great storm. For months, the capital has been a hive of preparation, but today, the hive is swarming. From your vantage point in the palace, you look down upon a scene of breathtaking scale. Your city is no longer a city. It is the head of a great golden serpent, its body coiled in the plains beyond the walls, ready to begin its long, slow crawl across the continent. You emerge from the palace, and a wave of sound washes over you. Not cheers or shouts, but a deep, resonant hum of 60,000 souls preparing to move as one. You are not dressed in the simple cottons of your daily court sessions. Today, you walk every inch the Mansa. You wear flowing robes of the richest indigo-dyed fabric, embroidered with threads of pure gold. On your head is a golden skull cap, a simple but powerful symbol of your authority. You mount your horse, Not a camel, as you will use in the deep desert, but a magnificent stallion, its harness glittering with golden ornaments. Your personal retinue surrounds you, a kaleidoscope of color and wealth. At the very front of the procession are the 500 attendants, the ones you have designated as your heralds, dressed in brilliant white. Each one carries the solid gold staff you had commissioned. As they begin to walk, the rising sun catches the polished metal, and it looks as though a river of pure light is flowing out of the city gates. It is a deliberately theatrical display, an opening statement in the grand narrative you are about to write. Behind them come the drummers, their rhythms steady and powerful, a heartbeat for the massive column. The sound echoes off the earthen walls of the city, a solemn, driving pulse that says, "We are coming." Then comes the main body of the caravan. It is a river of humanity. There are the soldiers, their spears and leather shields polished. There are the nobles and officials with their own smaller entourages. There are the merchants, the artisans, the cooks, all finding their designated place in the impossibly long line. And there are the camels. So many camels. The 100 beasts specifically loaded with the gold dust are interspersed throughout the caravan, each with its own dedicated handler and guards. They do not look much different from the camels carrying rice or tents, a deliberate security measure, hiding in plain sight. Your wife, the Empress Inari Kunate, travels in her own magnificent style. She has her own palanquin, a covered litter carried by strong bearers, shielded from the sun by curtains of silk. Her retinue is a court in miniature, a flush of brilliance and power in its own right. The inclusion of your family and the court is significant. It signals that this is not a military campaign. It is a state visit, a pilgrimage, a movement of a whole society. As you ride out of the city gates, you pass thousands of your subjects who have lined the road to watch the departure. They are quiet, their faces a mixture of awe, pride, and perhaps a little anxiety at seeing their king and so much of the empire's strength march away into the horizon. You raise a hand in acknowledgement, your expression serene. Inside, you feel the immense gravity of this moment. You are leaving the heart of your empire, the source of your power, for a journey that will take years. You have placed your trust in your brother, who will rule as regent in your absence. It is a huge political gamble. The stability of the empire rests on his loyalty and competence. A strange little detail of this departure is what happens in its immediate aftermath. As your caravan, which is so long it takes a full day to leave the vicinity of the capital, finally disappears over the horizon, a peculiar quiet descends on Nianai. The city that was, just yesterday, the bustling center of a continental-scale operation is suddenly half empty. The markets are quieter, the barracks hold fewer soldiers. It must have been a strange and unsettling feeling for those left behind. Historians often focus on the journey itself, but the act of leaving, the void it created back home, is a story in itself. It speaks to the immense confidence you had in the foundations of your empire, that it could withstand such a drain of talent and resources. One of the more contentious points among scholars is the exact number of people in your entourage. The figure of 60. Cairo comes from the Arab chroniclers who heard the story years later in Cairo and Damascus. Some modern historians argue this number might be an exaggeration, a way to make the story even more epic. They suggest a more realistic number might be closer to 15, 0 or 20, ding ding ding. Others argue that, given the accounts of the economic impact you had on Cairo, the larger number is entirely plausible. An army of accountants and logisticians could not create that much economic chaos. A mobile city could. As you ride at the head of your column, you are not counting heads. You just know that when you look back, the line of people and animals stretches further than your eye can see, kicking up a cloud of dust that blots out the horizon. It feels like 60,000. It feels like the whole world is on the move. The first day is slow. The great serpent is learning to move, to coordinate its many parts. By evening, You make 10. A city of tents rises as if by magic. Cooking fires flicker to life, and the smell of roasting millet and goat meat fills the air. Your own tent is a palace in miniature, complete with carpets, cushions, and servants to attend to your every need. You eat your evening meal, listening to the soft music of your guide's Cora as he sings a song of travel, of beginnings. The first step has been taken. The journey has begun. The familiar land of Mali is at your back, and the unknown world lies ahead. The first few weeks of the journey are a process of adaptation. The caravan, this sprawling, 60,000-person behemoth, slowly sheds the chaos of its departure and settles into a steady, rhythmic pulse of life on the move. You are no longer just a king in a procession. You are the mayor of a mobile city. A city that directs itself at dusk and vanishes with the dawn. Your day starts before sunrise. The call to prayer echoes through the camp, a thread of shared faith that connects every tent. The air is cool, a temporary reprieve from the heat that will soon bake the savannah. You watch as the city deconstructs itself. Tents are folded, cooking pots are scoured and packed, and the camels are loaded with practiced efficiency. The sound is a symphony of preparation, the grunting protests of the camels, the shouts of the handlers, the low murmur of thousands of conversations. Within a couple of hours, a landscape that held a bustling community is returned to empty grassland, marked only by the ashes of countless cooking fires and the tracks of thousands of feet and toes. As you travel, the landscape changes slowly. You leave the lush banks of the Niger and enter the Sahara, a semi-arid belt of thorny scrubland and acacia trees. The sun is more intense here, the shade more precious. You often ride on horseback, but as the terrain gets sandier, you, like many others, switch to the swaying, rhythmic gait of a camel. Riding a camel is an art. It is not about fighting its motion but moving with it, a gentle rocking that can be surprisingly comfortable once you get used to it. From your elevated position, you have a commanding view of the caravan. It is not a neat, single-file line. It is a wide, sprawling river of light, sometimes several miles across, flowing over the contours of the land. Life in the caravan is a microcosm of your empire. The social structure is meticulously maintained. Your royal entourage travels at the center, the most protected part of the column. The military units scout ahead and guard the flanks. The merchants and artisans form their own guilds, traveling together for solidarity and support. The logistics of feeding this city are mind-boggling. Each day, thousands of animals are slaughtered for meat. Huge cauldrons, carried on special carts, bubble away all day to cook the evening meal of grains and stew. It is a relentless, never-ending cycle of consumption and preparation. Water is the currency of survival. The route through the Sahara is chosen specifically to pass by wells and seasonal streams. The moment the caravan arrives at a water source, a carefully managed system kicks in. The animals are watered first, a process that can take hours. Then, a human chain of people with buckets and skins forms to refill the thousands of water bags. Every drop is precious. Water discipline is strict. Wasting it is a serious offense. One of the surprising, almost mundane, details of life in this mobile city is the sheer amount of administration it requires. Every evening, when the camp is set up, it is not just a time for rest. It is a time for governance. Scribes and officials in your retinue are busy. They record the day's travel, note the consumption of supplies, and log any incidents. A sick camel, a broken axle on a cart. You even hold court. Disputes that arise on the journey, a squabble between two merchants, a soldier accused of shirking his duties, are brought before you or your designated judges. Justice does not stop just because you are on the road. Maintaining order and fairness is crucial to preventing this massive, self-contained society from fraying at the edges. This constant, on-the-move governance is a topic that fascinates historians. The administrative records of your journey, if they were ever formally kept, have been lost to time. What scholars have are second-hand accounts, which are more interested in the gold and the spectacle. But the quiet, bureaucratic work that happened in the background was the invisible scaffolding that held the entire enterprise together. There is an ongoing debate about how formalized this mobile bureaucracy was. Was it an ad hoc system, or did you essentially bring a functioning, paper-pushing government office with you? The evidence of the journey's success suggests a highly organized, almost shockingly modern level of administrative skill. As you travel, you are not isolated. You pass through lands that are part of your empire, but are far from the capital. The arrival of your caravan is a major event for the local communities. They come out to see the spectacle, offering tribute in the form of food and water, and in return, you dispense gifts on justice. It is a powerful political tool. Your physical presence reinforces your authority in a way no messenger ever could. It reminds the provincial governors and local chiefs exactly who is in charge. This royal tour aspect of the pilgrimage is just as important as the religious one. As night falls, the caravan transforms again. The defensive perimeter is secured by the soldiers. The campfires create islands of light and warmth in the immense darkness of the African plain. The sounds change. The bustle of the day gives way to the music of the griots, the murmur of stories being told, the laughter of shared jokes. You sit outside your tent, looking up at a sky so full of stars it seems almost solid. There are no cities to dim their light. It is a profound, humbling sight. You are the richest, most powerful man for 1,000 miles in any direction, and yet, under that infinite canopy, you are just a traveler, a tiny speck of humanity moving slowly, deliberately, towards a distant, sacred horizon. As the weeks turn into months, the caravan develops its own unique social fabric. A city of 60,000 is not an anonymous crowd. It is a complex web of relationships, hierarchies, and familiar faces. You might be the Mansa, but even you are part of this temporary society. Getting to know the key players in your traveling world is essential, not just for governance, but for morale. Your most constant companion is your Grand Vizier. He is an older man, his face weathered like a wise old turtle's, but his mind is as sharp as a shard of obsidian. He travels near you, sometimes on horseback, sometimes in a comfortable litter so he can review documents. He is your sounding board, the one man who can offer unvarnished advice. While you are the visionary, he is the pragmatist. When you decide to distribute 1,000 pounds of gold to a local community, he is the one who quietly arranges the logistics and makes sure it is recorded in the ledgers. His presence is a calming influence on the entire expedition. Then there is the commander of your army, a man named Sagmantia. He is a formidable figure, always clad in his tough leather armor, even in the heat. He rarely smiles, but his authority is absolute. He and his lieutenants are responsible for the security of this 60,000-person golden prize. You meet with him every evening to review the day's security reports. He speaks of 2 scouting parties sighted in the distance, of the best defensive formations for the nightly camp, and of the morale of the soldiers. He is a man of action, not words, and you trust his judgment implicitly. The safety of everyone, from you to the lowliest camel handler, rests on his broad shoulders. You also spend time with the head merchant of the caravan. He is not a royal official but a representative of the powerful merchant guilds that are the economic engine of your empire. He is a man who thinks in numbers, the price of salt in Taikosa, the value of Malian textiles in Cairo, the number of days of grain left in your stores. He is a vital source of information, providing you with the real-world economic intelligence that your more sheltered court advisors might miss. His presence on the journey is a sign of the close, symbiotic relationship between the state and commerce in Mali. You protect the trade routes. The merchants generate the wealth that funds the state. It is a partnership. And, of course, there is your griot. He is more than just an entertainer. He is your living connection to your ancestors. In the evenings, he does not just sing songs of heroism. He sings the legal precedents and the diplomatic histories of your empire. His stories are a constant reminder of the legacy you are a part of and the one you are creating. Listening to him is both a comfort and a responsibility. It is a bit like having your nation's entire historical and constitutional archive serenading you to sleep every night. A fascinating, and often overlooked, group within the caravan is the women. Your wife, the Empress Inari Kunate, is not a secluded, silent figure. She is the head of her own massive household, a center of power and influence. Her retinue includes her own advisors, attendants, and artisans. The social and political dynamics of her court are as complex as your own. Arab chroniclers who later heard of your journey were particularly struck by the prominent and respected role women held in your society, a stark contrast to their own. This observation provides a precious, if brief, window into the gender dynamics of the Mali Empire, a subject historians wish they had more sources on. The debate continues on whether these women held direct political power or a more soft cultural influence, but their visible and prestigious role in your caravan was undeniable. One of the more peculiar characters you might encounter is a man known as the chief astrologer. He is a scholar whose expertise lies somewhere between science and mysticism. He advises on the most auspicious days to travel, interprets strange omens, a flock of birds flying in an unusual pattern, a strangely colored sunset, and generally acts as your spiritual advisor for the non-Islamic beliefs that still hold sway among many of your people. His role highlights the syncretic nature of your empire, where traditional African spirituality and the formal religion of Islam are not in conflict, but are woven together into a unique cultural tapestry. And then there are the thousands of ordinary people, the backbone of the expedition. You make a point of walking through the camp in the evenings, speaking to the soldiers, the cooks, the camel drivers. You hear their stories, their concerns. You might talk to a blacksmith who is worried about his dwindling supply of iron for repairs, or a mother who is anxious about her child's cough. These small interactions are crucial. They remind your people that you are not a distant, divine figure, but a leader who shares the dust and heat of the road with them. It builds a sense of shared purpose, a feeling that we are all in this together. You are the sun around which this entire solar system of people revolves, but each of them is a world unto themselves, with their own skills, their own ambitions, and their own stories. This caravan is a living, breathing cross-section of the Mali Empire, a portable version of the society you rule. And getting to know its citizens, from the Grand Vizier to the humble water carrier, is the real work of being their king. After months of trekking through the Sahara, a cheer erupts from the front of the caravan and ripples back through the entire, sprawling line. The scouts have spotted it, all a day. From your position, you cannot see it yet, but the change in atmosphere is palpable. The energy shifts from the monotonous endurance of the march to the eager anticipation of arrival. Walete is not just another stop. It is the first major milestone of your journey, the gateway to the true Sahara. As you draw closer, the city emerges from the dusty haze. It is a striking sight, a fortified town of reddish-brown stone and adobe, rising organically from the landscape. Walete is one of the most important southern terminals of the trans-Saharan trade. It is a place where the cultures of North Africa and West Africa meet and mingle, a bustling hub of commerce and scholarship. For your caravan, it is a vital pit stop, a place to rest, resupply, and prepare for the most dangerous leg of the journey ahead. Your arrival is, to put it mildly, a spectacle. The governor of Walete and the city's chief merchants on Dimas ride out to meet you. They are stunned into silence by the sheer scale of your entourage. They knew the Mansa was coming, but words could not have prepared them for the reality of a 60,000-person mobile city, fronted by heralds carrying staffs of solid gold. You dismount and greet them with the formal dignity befitting your station. There are speeches of welcome, gifts are exchanged, and a great feast is declared. You and your royal court are housed in the governor's citadel, but the rest of your party sets up a massive tent city outside a Lotus walls, effectively doubling the city's population overnight. The impact on the local economy is immediate and overwhelming. Your caravan needs food, tons of it. Grain, dates, meat, vegetables. The markets of Wallade are stripped bare within days, but the merchants are ecstatic. You are not haggling, you are paying in gold dust, and paying generously. A local merchant who might have made a modest profit in a whole year suddenly finds himself wealthy beyond his wildest dreams in a single week. You spend several weeks in Wallade. The rest is essential. The animals, the backbone of your expedition, need time to recover and graze on the sparse vegetation of the oasis. Your blacksmiths and leather workers are the busiest people in the city, working day and night to repair equipment worn down by the journey. Saddles are re-stitched, cartwheels are mended, and weapons are sharpened. It is a frenzy of maintenance and preparation. During your stay, you make a point of visiting the city's great mosque and meeting with its scholars. Wallade, like Timbuktu, is a center of Islamic learning. You spend hours in discussion with jurists and theologians, debating points of Islamic law and sharing knowledge from the scholars of your own capital. This is a crucial, often underappreciated, aspect of your journey. It is an intellectual pilgrimage as much as a religious one. You are not just a wealthy king passing through. You are a patron of the faith, engaging with the brightest minds you encounter. You leave behind generous gifts of gold to fund the mosque and its schools, an act that will be remembered and recorded by local chroniclers for generations. It is in Wallade that one of those strange, specific details of your journey is recorded. According to the chroniclers, you would hold Cordia, just as you did back in Neonai, but you did it in your own unique style. You would sit on a great platform, under a large silk parasol, a symbol of royalty, surmounted by a golden bird. You would speak through your guide, your interpreter, even when the petitioner spoke your own language perfectly well. This was not because you could not speak for yourself. It was a piece of royal theater, a way of maintaining an aura of majestic distance. Historians still puzzle over the precise cultural meaning of the golden bird. Was it a symbol of a particular deity, a clan totem, or simply an object of beauty? Like many details of your court, its exact significance is a mystery wrapped in the splendor of your reign. While in Wallade, your guides and logisticians are in their final, intense planning sessions for the next stage, the crossing of the empty quarter of the Sahara. This is where the tour guides you hire earn their gold. They have the latest intelligence on the state of the wells between here and Tag Hassa. They know which routes are safest from raiders. The decision is made to hire hundreds more camels, specifically to carry water. Each one will be a walking, grunting water tank. The margin for error from this point forward is zero. The day of departure from Wallade feels different from the departure from Neonai. The initial excitement has been replaced by a grim sense of determination. Everyone in the caravan knows what lies ahead. The stories of the Sea of Sand are not abstract legends anymore. They are a looming reality. As your caravan pulls away from the city, you look back at the reddish-brown walls of Wallade, the last major bastion of familiar civilization you will see for many months. The city has been a gracious host, a vital refuge, but it is now behind you. Ahead lies nothing but sand, sky, and the silent, guiding stars. The easy part is over. Leaving the relative comfort of Wallade, you plunge into the heart of the Sahara. The landscape transforms into the iconic image of the desert. Endless dunes of rippling, golden sand. The sun is a merciless hammer in a bleached white sky. The world is reduced to a palette of two colors, the yellow of the sand and the blue of the sky. It is in this vast, beautiful, and terrifying emptiness that you experience your first true taste of culture shock, not from a foreign people, but from the land itself. The scale of the desert is psychologically overwhelming. You can travel for days and see the exact same horizon, a perfect circle of sun meeting sky. It creates a sense of profound isolation, a feeling that your entire 60,000-person city is just a fragile speck in an indifferent universe. The routines of the caravan become more than just logistics. They become a ritual of sanity. The pre-dawn prayer, the packing, the marching, the evening count. This rhythm is the only thing that gives structure to the timeless, featureless expanse. The heat is a physical presence, an enemy you must constantly fight. During the day, the air shimmers, creating mirages on the horizon, ghostly lakes and shimmering cities that your tour guides ignore with a practiced eye. Your people adapt. They learn to do as the desert dwellers do, rest during the brutal heat of midday, seeking whatever sliver of shade can be found next to a camel or under a makeshift canopy. The main travel happens in the cool hours of the morning and late afternoon. Sometimes, when the moon is full, the caravan even travels at night, moving through a surreal landscape of silver and shadow. This environment forces a new kind of social intimacy. The strict hierarchies of the court begin to blur at the edges. When a sandstorm blows in, a terrifying, suffocating wall of brown darkness, everyone, from you to the youngest camel boy, huddles together, faces wrapped in cloth, waiting for the fury to pass. In these moments, titles and wealth are meaningless. Survival is the only currency that matters. You see your vizier, a man of immense dignity, his face caked with dust, sharing his water skin with a common soldier. These small acts of shared humanity forge a bond deeper than any courtly protocol. It is during this crossing that you first encounter people who are truly other. You come across small encampments of tour nomads. They are not the guides you have hired, but independent clans who make their home in this desolation. Your arrival is like a visitation from another planet. They emerge from their low, hide tents, their faces veiled, their eyes wary and curious. They have never seen such a display of wealth, such a mass of humanity. Dear, you experience a fascinating cultural exchange that is also a subtle power play. Your diplomats and guides approach them first. Gifts are offered, not gold, which has little immediate value here, but things of real worth: water, dates, fine cloth, and salt. Salt, which you carry in vast quantities, is as precious as gold in many parts of Africa. For these desert dwellers, a block of salt is a lifeline. In return, they offer their own gifts: a few goats, some bitter desert melons, and, most importantly, information. They tell your guides about the state of a nearby well or the movements of a rival clan. It is a transaction of mutual respect, but also an unmistakable demonstration of your power. You have so much you can give it away. They live on the razor's edge of survival. This interaction gives rise to a curious historical debate. Later, chroniclers would write about your journey with awe, but some of their descriptions of the peoples you encountered in the deep desert can sound condescending, describing them as primitive or savage. Yet, your own actions, as recorded, seem to be ones of diplomacy and respect. The discrepancy likely lies in the perspective of the observer. To a sheltered Durban scholar in Cairo or Damascus, the rugged self-sufficiency of the Tuareg might seem like a lack of civilization. To you, a man who is currently a guest in their harsh domain, their skills are worthy of immense respect. The question of how you truly viewed these people, as subjects, as curiosities, or as fellow travelers, is something historians can only infer. One day, your caravan comes across a truly alien sight: the ruins of a settlement, half buried in the sand. It is a ghost town, a testament to the desert's power to reclaim what man has built. Your guide tells a story about this place, a tale of a proud king who defied the spirits of the desert and whose city was swallowed by the sands as punishment. It is a sobering moment. It reminds everyone in your caravan of the fragility of their own existence, of the immense power of the nature you are trying to conquer. This is the ultimate culture shock, not the meeting of two peoples, but the collision of human ambition with a geological time scale. The desert was here long before your empire, and it will be here long after. You are just a fleeting dream passing through its slumber. After what feels like an eternity in the featureless ocean of sand, the landscape begins to change again. Patches of scrubby vegetation appear, then a few hardy trees. The scouts ride back with the news that brings a jolt of life to the entire caravan. They have reached the Nile Valley. The desert has been crossed. You have arrived in Egypt. The sense of collective relief is so profound it is almost a physical thing. People weep. They embrace. They fall to their knees in prayers of thanks. Your destination is Cairo, the largest, most magnificent city your people have ever imagined. It is the jewel of the Mamluk Sultanate, the powerhouse of the Islamic world. As your vast caravan emerges from the desert and begins its procession along the fertile banks of the Nile, you become the biggest news story Egypt has seen in decades. Word of your coming has preceded you. Of course, traders carry stories faster than any official messenger, but the tales were dismissed by many as wild exaggerations. No one was prepared for the reality. Imagine being a farmer working in your field along the Nile. You look up from your work and see a cloud of dust on the western horizon. This is not unusual. But the cloud grows, and it does not dissipate. Then you begin to hear a sound, a low rumble like distant thunder. As it gets closer, you see them. First, the 500 heralds in their brilliant white robes, each carrying a staff of solid gold that glitters impossibly in the Egyptian sun. Behind them, a column of humanity so vast you cannot see its end. Tens of thousands of people, thousands of camels, soldiers in armor you have never seen before. And at its heart, a king on a magnificent horse, surrounded by a court of unbelievable opulence. It would feel like you were witnessing a myth come to life. Your first impression of Egypt is one of lush, vibrant life. After the stark minimalism of the Sahara, the Nile Delta is an explosion of green. The richness of the soil, the density of the villages, the sheer number of people. It is a world away from the wide open spaces of your Malian empire. The architecture is different, too. You see stone buildings, multi-story houses, and the towering minarets of countless mosques. It is a different kind of civilization, older in some ways, more densely packed, buzzing with a different energy. You do not march straight into Cairo. That would be unthinkably rude and politically foolish. Instead, you make camp near the Great Pyramids of Giza. It is a symbolic choice. You, a great ruler from the south, are paying your respects to the timeless monuments of this ancient land. From your camp, you have a perfect view of the pyramids, silent stone mountains against the sky. To you and your people, they are wonders beyond comprehension, built by jinn or ancient giants. Your guide sings songs about them, weaving them into the tapestry of world history as he understands it. The news of your arrival throws the court of the Mamluk Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, into a frenzy. Who is this sub-Saharan king? Where did he come from? And is he really as wealthy as the rumors say? Emissaries are sent from the Sultan's court to your camp. This is your first major diplomatic test on the world stage. You receive them not in a simple tent, but in your grand audience pavilion, which has been erected for the occasion. You are seated on your platform, draped in the finest silks, surrounded by your most impressive courtiers. The protocol is precise, designed to convey power, piety, and sophistication. Very funny, and very human. Detail is recorded by the Arab chronicler Al-Umarai, who documented your visit. The Sultan's officials are, to be blunt, completely blown away. They are used to wealth, but the sheer, casual quantity of gold they see in your camp is staggering. It is not just your throne or your jewelry. It is the fact that even your cooks, seem to have gold dust to trade, and your servants are dressed in silk brocades that would be the envy of a Cairene merchant. They report back to the Sultan that the rumors are not only true, they might be understatements. The question of how to welcome you becomes a major topic of discussion in the Sultan's court. This is not a simple state visit. The size of your entourage is a logistical nightmare for the city. Where do you house 60,000 people? How do you feed them? And what is the proper etiquette for greeting a king of a realm they know so little about? There is a debate among historians about the Mamluks' initial attitude. Were they welcoming, or were they wary? The answer is likely both. They were intrigued by your wealth and piety, but also cautious about the presence of such a large, well-armed foreign host camp just outside their capital. From your camp at Giza, you get your first real look at Cairo. In the 14th century, it is one of the world's great metropolises. The skyline is a forest of domes and minarets. The sounds of the city, the call to prayer from 100 mosques, the din of the markets, the shouts of vendors, carry across the river to your camp. It is both thrilling and intimidating. You have successfully led your people across the deadliest barrier on earth. You have arrived at the center of the civilized world as you know it. But the next challenge is not one of survival, but of diplomacy and perception. You have their attention. Now you have to decide what to do with it. The delicate dance of diplomacy begins. The Mamluk Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, is an experienced and powerful ruler, head of a military dynasty that controls Egypt, Syria, and the holy cities of the Hijaz. He is not easily impressed. Your arrival presents him with both an opportunity and a protocol nightmare. He extends a formal invitation for you to visit him at the citadel of Cairo, his formidable fortress palace that looms over the city. The day you enter Cairo is a city-wide event. The streets are lined with thousands of curious onlookers, all straining to catch a glimpse of the legendary King of Gold. Your procession is a masterclass in public relations. The 500 golden staff-bearing heralds lead the way, followed by your royal guard, your nobles, then finally, you. You ride your finest horse, projecting an image of calm, regal authority. You are not a supplicant. You are a fellow monarch visiting an equal. You arrive at the citadel, a maze of fortified walls, grand halls, and courtyards. You are escorted into the presence of the Sultan. And here, you are faced with a critical moment of etiquette. According to Mamluk court protocol, visitors are expected to kiss the ground and the Sultan's hand. It is a gesture of submission, acknowledging the Sultan as the preeminent ruler in the region. Your advisors would have briefed you on this, but you are the Mansa of Mali. You bend the knee to no one but God. What happens next is recorded by several chroniclers and becomes one of the most famous anecdotes of your journey. When prompted to kiss the ground, you refuse. You state, politely but firmly, that you are a devout Muslim and that you prostrate yourself only before Allah. It is a tense moment. To refuse the Sultan's protocol in his own throne room is a bold, almost audacious move. The air in the hall is thick with unspoken tension. The Mamluk courtiers, rigid in their adherence to tradition, are likely scandalized. But you are a brilliant diplomat. You diffuse the situation with a gesture of sublime cleverness. You declare, however, I will prostrate myself before God, who created me and brought me here. You then turn, face the direction of Mecca, and perform a full, pious prostration of Islamic prayer. In one move, you have sidestepped the humiliation of submitting to a foreign ruler while demonstrating your profound piety in a way that no one can fault. You have turned a potential insult into an act of unimpeachable religious devotion. The Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, is said to have been so impressed by this display of weakened principle that he immediately relaxed his stance. He rises from his throne, steps down, and greets you as an equal, walking beside you and seating you next to him. This is a huge breach of his own court's protocol and a massive sign of respect. The two of you begin to converse, likely through interpreter. You talk about your journey, your kingdom, and your faith. The Sultan, who was a great builder and patron of the arts, is fascinated by your stories of a sophisticated empire in the heart of Africa, a place his geographers knew only as a vague shape on their maps. This initial meeting sets the tone for your entire 3-month stay in Cairo. You are treated not as a minor king from the provinces, but as a major world leader. The Sultan showers you with gifts, fine horses, magnificent robes, and lodgings in one of the city's most luxurious palaces. In return, you present him with gifts of your own, mostly gold, in quantities that leave the royal treasurer speechless. There is a subtle, ongoing debate among historians about the true nature of this encounter. Was the Sultan genuinely impressed by your piety and wit, as the chroniclers friendly to use a jest? Or was he simply being pragmatic? He saw a king who controlled a seemingly endless supply of gold and commanded a massive army camped on his doorstep. Perhaps treating you as an equal was simply the most intelligent geopolitical move. The Mamluks were known for their pragmatism. The truth is probably a mixture of both. Your diplomatic skill gave him the perfect reason to do what was already in his best interest. A lesser-known aspect of your interactions is the exchange of knowledge. The Sultan introduces you to the leading scholars, jurists, and architects of Cairo. You are a sponge, soaking up information about Islamic law, science, art, and architecture. You are particularly fascinated by the Mamluk style of building, the grand mosques with their intricate stonework, elegant arches, and soaring minarets. You're already thinking ahead, not just about your pilgrimage to Mecca, but about what you will bring back to your own kingdom. This is not just a visit, it is a fact-finding mission. Your refusal to bow, that single act of proud defiance, defines your entire visit. It establishes you as a sovereign of immense stature. The story ripples through the markets and alleyways of Cairo, and later, through the courts of the entire Islamic world. You are not just the king of gold. You are Mansa Musa, the king who would bow only to God. It is the kind of story that transforms a man into a legend. Having established yourself as a sovereign of equal footing with the Sultan, you and your 60,000-person entourage settle in for a 3-month stay in Cairo. And this is where your journey pivots from a display of political power to an act of almost cataclysmic generosity. You have come to see the world, and you want the world to see the wealth of Mali. The primary way you express this is by opening the imperial coffers and letting the gold flow. Your shopping trip in Cairo is unlike anything the city has ever witnessed. You are not just buying souvenirs. You are engaging in a citywide campaign of spending and gift-giving on a scale that beggars belief. You and your nobles become the most sought-after customers in the legendary Kanelka Lily Bazaar, a sprawling labyrinth of shops selling everything from spices and perfumes to the finest silks and scholarly books. Picture yourself walking through the market. You are surrounded by your retinue, the 500 heralds with their golden staffs creating a stir wherever you go. A merchant display is a bolt of exquisite Syrian silk, embroidered with silver thread. You admire it, and instead of haggling over the price, you ask how much he has. All of it. You will take it. You pay him with a pouch of gold dust whose value is likely 10 times what he was asking. The merchant, accustomed to shrewd bargaining, is left in a state of joyous shock. Word spreads through the bazaar like wildfire. The king of Mali is paying 10 dinars for what is worth one. This is not just commercial spending. A huge part of your expenditure is pure charity, or zakat, an essential pillar of Islam. You distribute alms to the city's poor on a daily basis. Every Friday, when you attend prayers at the great mosques like the Al-Azhar or the Mosque of Ibn Tulan, you leave behind enormous donations for the upkeep of the buildings and the support of the scholars. You seek out holy men, students, and destitute families, and you give them gold. Not just a few coins, but enough to change their lives. Your generosity becomes the talk of the town. People line the streets wherever you go, hoping for a gift. Your name is on every owner's lips. You are a walking, breathing festival of wealth. Your courtiers and even your common soldiers, all carrying their own supply of gold, join in the spending spree. They buy property, fine clothes, and lavish gifts to send back home. The entire city of Cairo becomes swept up in this gold rush. One of the most vivid accounts of this period comes from the scholar Al-Umarai, who wrote about your visit years later based on interviews with Cairan officials who witnessed it firsthand. One official told him that you left no royal courtier, no holder of a royal office, without a gift of a load of gold. He described you as a man of noble generosity. The sheer quantity is what stuck in people's minds. It was not the quality of the gold, it was the volume. You treated it like it was sand, a common commodity that could be dispensed with at will. There is a fascinating, almost comical, detail in this spending spree. You and your people, coming from a land where gold was the primary medium of exchange, were not always savvy consumers in Cairo's complex, currency-based market. You were, in modern terms, the easy marks. Merchants quickly learned that your entourage would pay almost any price asked, without question. You were buying not just goods, but goodwill. The price was irrelevant. The gesture was everything. This naivete in the marketplace, however, would have unforeseen and dramatic consequences for the city's economy. Historians often debate the motivation behind this extreme generosity. Was it purely piety? Was it a calculated display of power, meant to cement your reputation? Or was it a bit of both? The most likely answer is that it was a seamless blend of all these things. In the worldview of a 14th century West African monarch, piety, power, and wealth were not separate categories. Demonstrating immense wealth through generosity was a way of demonstrating God's favor upon your kingdom. A powerful king was expected to be generous. It was a fundamental part of the job description. Your actions were perfectly in line with the traditions of big man leadership, where a leader's status is affirmed by his ability to give away more than anyone else. As the weeks go by, the city is flooded with your Malian gold. Every merchant, every landlord, every artisan seems to have a stash of it. The initial joy of this newfound wealth is palpable. The city is booming, but you are unknowingly pouring so much of one commodity into a closed system that you are fundamentally altering its value. You are a human stimulus package of unprecedented proportions. You think you are enriching the city, and in the short term, you are, but you are also lighting the fuse on an economic bomb. The shopping trip is fun while it lasts, but the bill for Cairo's economy is about to come due. Your 3-month-long festival of spending in Cairo feels, to you and your people, like a magnificent success. You have been hailed as a great and pious king. You have made thousands of friends, and you have left a trail of goodwill and prosperity in your wake. Or so you think. As you and your caravan finally pack up to leave Cairo and continue the journey to Mecca, you are blissfully unaware of the economic chaos you have unleashed. You did not just make it rain gold. You caused a flood that would wreck the city's economic foundations for more than a decade. The problem is a simple one, a textbook case of supply and demand that you inadvertently created. Gold, like any commodity, derives its value from its scarcity. For centuries, Cairo's economy had been based on a relatively stable relationship between gold and silver. The gold dinar and the silver dirham were the two coins that powered the marketplace. There was a predictable amount of gold in circulation, and prices were based on that reality. Then you arrived. In the space of just 3 months, you pumped so much new gold into the system that its scarcity vanished overnight. Suddenly, everyone has gold. The merchant you overpaid, the beggar you gifted, the landlord who rented a house to one of your nobles. They are all flush with gold dust and nuggets. Their first instinct is to spend it. They go to the market to buy bread. Well, and cloth. But the baker, seeing a customer paying with a hefty pinch of gold dust, thinks, this person has a lot of money. I can charge more. He doubles the price of his bread. The customer, rich with your gold, pays it without a second thought. This happens all over the city, in every market and every transaction. This is inflation, in its most classic and brutal form. The value of gold plummets because there is simply too much of it. The gold dinar, which last month could buy a sack of wheat, can now only buy half a sack. The purchasing power of every owner's money, especially gold-based money, is collapsing. The salaries of soldiers and government officials, paid in gold, are suddenly worth much less. Their savings are evaporating. The economic fallout is devastating. According to Al-Umarai, the price of the gold dinar crashed. He states that its value fell by at least 20%, a catastrophic drop in a pre-modern economy. For over 12 years after your visit, the gold market in Cairo remained in a deep depression. You had, with the best of intentions, single-handedly caused a regional economic recession. This event is one of the most famous examples in pre-modern history of a single person's actions having such a massive, measurable economic impact. It is so clear-cut that it is often used in introductory economics classes to explain the principles of inflation. It became a walking, talking monetary policy disaster. A particularly strange consequence is what happened to the silver market. As the value of gold cratered, the value of silver, which you had not brought with you in large quantities, skyrocketed in comparison. People who held their wealth in silver suddenly found themselves much richer relative to those who held gold. The entire financial balance of the city was turned tilted. Debts were thrown into chaos. A debt that was agreed upon in gold dinars was now much easier to pay off, cheating the lender. A debt in silver dirhams became cripplingly difficult to repay. It created a tangle of financial winners and losers that would take years to unravel. Historians have long debated the extent of your awareness of this economic impact. Did you have any idea what you were doing? The consensus is, almost certainly not. The economic theories to understand and predict nationwide inflation did not exist yet. In your empire, gold was a primary commodity, almost a raw material. Its value was stable because its supply, while vast, was controlled and entered the economy at a predictable rate. You applied the economic logic of Nianai to the much more complex, currency-driven market of Cairo, with disastrous results. You thought you were giving away wealth. You did not realize you were actually devaluing the very concept of wealth itself. This accidental economic crash is a fascinating historical lesson. It demonstrates the interconnections of the medieval world, an act of religious piety and political bravado by a West African king had severe, long-lasting consequences for the most powerful state in the Middle East. It shows that the global economy is not a modern invention. The trade routes that carried your gold across the Sahara also carried the seeds of economic contagion. As your caravan moves on towards the Sinai Peninsula, leaving a glittering, chaotic Cairo behind, you are filled with a sense of accomplishment. You carry with you the Sultan's finest gifts and the warm memory of a city that seemed to embrace you. You have no idea that the name Mansa Musa is now being cursed in the very same markets where it was once celebrated. You came, you saw, you gave, and you accidentally broke their economy. It is perhaps the most spectacular case of it is the thought that counts in all of history. While you and your caravan are blissfully heading towards Mecca, back in Cairo, the ordinary citizens are grappling with the bizarre economic reality you have left behind. Their experience is a strange cocktail of delight and despair, a true story of be careful what you wish for. Let us step away from your royal perspective and imagine being a regular person in Cairo during this golden hangover. Picture a man named Ahmed, a skilled coppersmith with a small shop in the Khan el-Khalili Bazaar. For his entire life, a gold dinar has been a symbol of significant wealth, something he might see only a few times a year. When your caravan arrived, one of your nobles, impressed by a particularly ornate lantern, bought it for a handful of gold dust worth 50 dinars, more than Ahmed makes in 6 months. That night, Ahmed went home feeling like the richest man in the world. He dreamed of buying a bigger house, of arranging a fine marriage for his daughter, of finally fixing the leaky roof. The next morning, he goes to the market to buy food for a celebratory feast. He approaches the bread seller, a man he has known for years. The price of bread has doubled. He is annoyed, but he has plenty of gold, so he pays it. He goes to the butcher. The price of lamb has tripled. The butcher shrugs and says, "Everyone is paying in gold now." By the end of the day, Ahmed has spent a shocking amount of his newfound wealth on basic necessities. The heavy pouch of gold dust in his belt feels noticeably lighter. A week later, the situation is worse. The value of gold is in freefall. Merchants are starting to refuse to accept gold for their goods, or if they do, they demand an exorbitant amount. They would rather be paid in silver dirhams, which have held their value. Ahmed's pile of gold, which once represented a life-changing fortune, is now a source of anxiety. He has to spend more and more of it each day just to live. The dream of a new house is gone. He will be lucky if he can afford to fix the roof. He is, in a very real sense, a gold-poor millionaire. He possesses a mountain of a commodity that is rapidly losing its worth. Now, consider a different character, a government scribe named Fatima. Her salary is paid by the Sultan's treasury, a fixed number of gold dinars each month. For years, it has been a respectable, middle-class income. But after your visit, her salary is suddenly worthless. She receives the same number of coins, but they buy half of what they used to. She has to cut back on expenses, forego small luxuries, and worry about feeding her family. She did nothing wrong. She worked just as hard. But because a foreign king decided to be generous, her life has become a struggle. Her resentment would not be directed at you, a semi-mythical figure who has already left. It would be a quiet, simmering anger at the chaos and unfairness of it all. The social fabric of the city begins to fray. People who were once neighbors and friends become suspicious of one another. The lucky few who held their wealth in silver or property are suddenly much better off than those who dealt in gold. A new, chaotic class system emerges, based not on skill or lineage, but on the sheer dumb luck of what kind of assets you held when the golden flood hit. There are stories of disputes, of merchants being accused of price gouging, of old contracts and debts being declared void. One of the oddest little side effects that historians speculate about is the impact on fashion and decorative arts. With gold suddenly becoming so cheap, did it lose its status as the ultimate luxury good? Perhaps for a few years, the truly wealthy in Cairo disdained gold, preferring more exclusive materials like silver, ivory, or imported Chinese porcelain. It is a fascinating thought. Your generosity may have made gold temporarily unfashionable. The ultimate status symbol became a bit tacky. This is a topic of niche academic debate, of course, but it highlights how deeply your actions penetrated every aspect of Cairene life. The Sultan's government is in a bind. How do you fix an economy broken by an overdose of money? They cannot just recall the gold. It is in the hands of thousands of individuals. They try to implement price controls, but these are notoriously difficult to enforce and often lead to black markets. The only real solution is time. This slow, painful process of the excess gold being spent, traded away to other regions, or hoarded until its value eventually recovers. This is a process that will take more than a decade. So while you are on your way to fulfill a sacred duty, feeling pious and generous, the people of Cairo are living through a period of economic whiplash. They experienced a brief, intoxicating moment of wealth, followed by a long, painful hangover of inflation and uncertainty. Theirs is a cautionary tale about the nature of money and value. They learned it the hard way that true wealth is not just having a pile of shiny metal. It is the stability and trust that underpins the entire system. You gave them the gold, but you took the stability. And for many of them, it was a very bad trade. Unaware of the economic turmoil brewing in your wake, you complete your pilgrimage to Mecca. The journey through the Sinai and the Hijaz is arduous but spiritually fulfilling. You and your 60,000 followers perform the sacred rites of the Hajj, circling the Kaaba, praying on the plains of Arafah. It is the spiritual climax of your journey, the entire reason for this grand undertaking. You feel a sense of peace and absolution. Your duty is done. Now all that remains is the long journey home. As your caravan begins its return trip, you once again set up camp in Cairo for a short period. And it is here that you finally come face to face with the consequences of your own generosity. The city you return to is not the same one you left a few months prior. The initial euphoria has evaporated, replaced by a tense and unstable economic atmosphere. Your advisors and merchants, who are much more attuned to the rhythms of the market, are the first to notice. They report that the price of everything has skyrocketed. The gold you are offering is met with a strange reluctance. People want silver, or they want a much larger quantity of gold for their goods than before. You summon the city's leading merchants and money changers to your pavilion for an audience. You are a practical ruler, and you want to understand what has happened. They explain the situation to you, perhaps with delicate, diplomatic language, but the message is clear. Your unprecedented distribution of gold has devalued the currency and shattered their economy. The gold dinar is trading at a fraction of its former worth. To your immense credit, you do not dismiss their concerns. You are not a tyrant who is indifferent to the effects of his actions. You are genuinely troubled by the news that your pious act of charity has caused such harm. You feel a sense of responsibility. According to the chroniclers, you decide to do something utterly unprecedented. You decide to try and fix the market you broke. Your solution is as bold and audacious as the act that caused the problem in the first place. You decide to take the gold back out of the market. But you do not just demand it back. You decide to borrow it. You, the richest man in the world, start borrowing money from the merchants of Cairo. You offer to take all the gold they can provide, and in return, you will pay them back at a later date with an extremely high rate of interest. This is a stunning move. It is essentially the world's first case of a foreign leader conducting quantitative tightening. You are attempting to single-handedly soak up the excess liquidity in the Cairene economy. Your agents spread out through the city, no longer giving away gold, but borrowing it. They go to the very same merchants you enriched on your arrival and offer them a deal. The merchants, who are sitting on a depreciating asset, are likely thrilled. They get to offload their cheap gold in exchange for a promise of future payment at a premium. It is a brilliant way to restore their faith in the value of the metal. This act of borrowing has fascinated economists and historians for centuries. It is such a sophisticated and modern-seeming response to an economic crisis. The historical debate here is not about whether it happened. The sources are quite clear that it did, but about how effective it was. Did your massive buyback scheme actually work? Some historians argue that it was a masterful stroke that helped stabilize the market much faster than would have otherwise been possible. By reintroducing scarcity and demonstrating your own faith in the long-term value of gold, you helped restore confidence. Other historians are more skeptical. They argue that while it was a noble effort, the scale of the problem was simply too large for any one man to fix. You might have absorbed a significant amount of gold, but you could not get it all. They suggest that your borrowing may have caused its own smaller ripples of economic disruption and that, ultimately, only time could truly heal the damage. The real recovery, they argue, was a long, slow process that continued for years after you left. A little-known detail of this whole affair is the logistical nightmare it must have created for your own treasurer. On the way to Mecca, his job was to manage the distribution of wealth. On the way back, his job was to manage the acquisition of debt. He would have had to keep meticulous records of who you borrowed from and the interest rates you promised. These debts would have to be honored, likely by future caravans sent from Mali with goods or more gold, to maintain your kingdom's reputation for financial integrity. Your attempt to repair the Cairean economy, whether fully successful or not, adds another layer to your legend. It shows you as more than just a naive giver of gifts. It paints you as a responsible, if accidental, economic force. You were not just powerful enough to break an economy. You were powerful and responsible enough to try and put it back together. It is a testament to your character. As you finally leave Cairo for the second and last time, your camels are once again laden with gold, but this time, it is borrowed gold, a heavy burden of responsibility you carry with you back across the sands of the Sahara. You came to Cairo as a pilgrim. You left as a central banker. With the strange economic drama of Cairo finally behind you, your caravan turns its face towards the holy city. The journey across the Sinai Peninsula and into the Arabian Hijaz is a profound shift in focus. The political maneuvering and economic spectacle of Egypt give way to a more personal and spiritual quest. This is the very heart of your pilgrimage, the purpose that 60,000 people in motion across a continent. The landscape itself feels different, more ancient and sacred. You travel through valleys and mountains that have been the backdrop for prophetic history for millennia. Your Grayat stories now mingle with the tales of the prophets of Islam, stories that are deeply embedded in the rocks and sands you pass through. The mood in the caravan becomes more solemn, more introspective. The soldiers are still vigilant, the cooks still cook, but there is a palpable sense of anticipation. You are approaching the center of your spiritual world. Finally, you arrive at the gates of Mecca. For you and your people, many of whom have spent their entire lives in the savanna and forests of West Africa, it is an astonishing sight. A city built of stone and earth, nestled in a barren valley, but glowing with an almost supernatural importance. It is a city without grand palaces or mighty rivers like Niamey or Cairo, yet it holds more power and significance than any of them. This is the destination you have dreamed of for years, the focal point of every prayer. Dressed in the simple white garments of the Iron, you and your people shared all symbols of rank and wealth. You, the Mansa, are indistinguishable from the humblest camel driver in your entourage. This ritual act of equality is a powerful moment. For the first time in this long journey, you are not a king, a diplomat, or an economic force. You are simply a pilgrim, one among millions who have made this journey before you and will make it after. This act of humility, after the grandiosity of your journey so far, is perhaps the most profound display of your faith. You enter the Masjid al-Haram, the great mosque, and you see it for the first time. The Kaaba, the simple, black, tube-shaped building, draped in silk and gold-embroidered cloth. It is the literal and metaphorical center of the Islamic world, the Qibla towards which you have faced in prayer 5 times a day for your entire life. To finally see it in person is an emotionally overwhelming experience. You lead your people in the Tawaf, the ritual of circling the Kaaba 7 times, a moving river of humanity, all chanting prayers in unison. The sound is a deep, resonant murmur that seems to make the very air vibrate. You perform all the rites of the Hajj. You walk between the hills of Safa and Marwa, reenacting Hagar's desperate search for water. You travel to the plain of Arafat, standing in prayer from noon to sunset, seeking forgiveness and mercy from God. This is the spiritual apex of the pilgrimage. Standing on that plain, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of fellow Muslims from every corner of the known world, Arabs, Persians, Turks, Indians, Berbers, is a stunning realization of the universal community, the Ummah, that you are a part of. You see people of every color and social station, all united in a single purpose. It is the most powerful cultural exchange imaginable. One of the more subtle aspects of your time in Mecca is the exchange of ideas. You speak with scholars from Baghdad, jurists from Damascus, and mystics from Persia. You share stories of how Islam is practiced in your West African empire, and you listen eagerly to their perspectives. This is where the intellectual journey and the spiritual journey become one. You are absorbing the breadth and diversity of Islamic thought, knowledge that you will carry back with you to Mali. There is a gentle historical debate concerning the purity of your Islamic practice. Some Arab chroniclers noted with a hint of condescension that the West Africans they met, yourself included, seemed to blend Islamic traditions with their older, pre-Islamic cultural practices, like the prominent role of women in your court or the use of a royal interpreter. While some Orthodox scholars in Mecca might have viewed this sigmatism with suspicion, it was, in fact, the key to Islam's successful spread in your empire. It was not a replacement of culture, but an integration with it. Your presence in Mecca, as a legitimate and pious king from a distant land, was a testament to the faith's incredible adaptability and reach. During your stay, you continue your practice of lavish generosity, but here it is different. In Cairo, it was a spectacle. In Mecca, it feels more like a sacred duty. You donate immense sums of gold for the upkeep of the holy sites and for the support of the city's residents, who dedicate their lives to serving the pilgrims. Your generosity here is not about impressing a sultan. It is an offering to God. As you prepare to leave Mecca, your pilgrimage complete, you feel a sense of profound transformation. You have fulfilled the most sacred of your duties as a Muslim. You have stood as an equal among the global community of the faithful. You have emptied your treasuries in acts of piety. But the journey is only half over. The long road home awaits, and as you will soon discover, you are not just taking memories and spiritual fulfillment back with you. You are about to embark on the most important shopping trip of your life. The journey home from Mecca is a different kind of expedition. The spiritual climax is over. The great display of wealth in Cairo was a memory. Now, your focus shifts to the future. You are not just a king returning to his throne. You are a builder returning to his workshop. Having seen the great intellectual and artistic centers of the Islamic world, you are filled with a new ambition to replicate that brilliance in your own kingdom. Your return journey transforms into one of history's most audacious talent scouting and recruitment drives. You do not just want to bring back souvenirs. You want to bring back the souvenir makers. You want the knowledge, not just the books. As you travel back through Mecca, Medina, and Cairo, you actively seek out the brightest and most skilled individuals you can find. You are looking for architects, engineers, scholars, poets, doctors, and jurists, anyone who can help you elevate the culture and infrastructure of the Mali Empire. Your pitch is almost irresistible. You offer staggering salaries, paid in gold. You promise them a position of immense prestige in a new and exciting land. Under the patronage of a powerful and pious king, you offer them the chance to make their mark, to build something new, to be part of a grand project of civilization uplift. For a scholar languishing in a minor post in a crowded Cairene school, or an architect looking for a truly monumental commission, the offer is the opportunity of a lifetime. You essentially become a venture capitalist for human talent. You hold audiences where, instead of dispensing justice, you interview potential recruits. A renowned doctor from Cairo might be brought before you. You question him about his methods, his knowledge of Galenic medicine, his understanding of herbal remedies. Satisfied, you make him an offer that far exceeds what the Sultan pays his own court physician. A master stonemason who worked on a grand mosque in Mecca might be persuaded to join your caravan, tempted by the promise of building a new, magnificent Jingyui rubber mosque in a city he has only just heard of, Timbuktu. This recruitment drive is a huge strain on your already depleted resources. Remember, you had to borrow gold in Cairo just to stabilize the market. Now you are spending that borrowed gold, and more, on salaries and relocation packages for your new hires. Your treasurer must be in a perpetual state of anxiety, watching the treasury empty out for a second time. This demonstrates your incredible foresight. You understand that true wealth is not just the gold you have, but the human capital you can attract. You are investing in your people, and the returns, you believe, will be far greater than any pile of metal. One of the fascinating questions historians ponder is the mindset of those who accepted your offer. What did it take for a man to leave the center of the known world, a city like Cairo, and agree to travel for months across the Sahara? Toole and his peers would have considered the edge of the world. It speaks to your charisma and the power of your vision. It also speaks to the universal human desire for adventure and opportunity. These were not just mercenaries. They were pioneers, tempted by the call of a new frontier. This talent acquisition program was not limited to Arabs or Egyptians. You recruited from every corner of the Islamic world you touched. Berbers from North Africa, scholars from the Levant, perhaps even a few traders from as far away as Persia or India who were in Mecca for the Hajj. Your caravan, which had left Mali as a purely West African entity, was returning as a multicultural, multinational think tank. The conversations around the campfires must have been incredible, a mix of languages, ideas, and perspectives, all flowing towards the heart of your empire. A subtle but important part of this process was the recruitment of bureaucrats and administrators. You were impressed by the efficient Mamluk administration. You saw how they used written records, formal tax systems, and a professional civil service to manage their vast state. You hire scribes and administrators who can help you modernize your own imperial bureaucracy, moving it from a system based heavily on oral tradition and personal loyalty to one augmented by the power of the written word. This less glamorous recruitment of paper pushes was perhaps just as crucial as hiring the star architects. As your caravan slowly makes its way back across the desert, it has a new energy. It is a mobile university, a traveling construction company, a government in exile all rolled into one. You spend your evenings not just listening to your griot, but in deep conversation with your new hires, sketching out plans for new buildings, discussing reforms to the legal code, and dreaming of the golden age you will inaugurate upon your return. The gold you spent in Cairo bought you fame and caused a crisis. The gold you are spending now is buying you a future. It is a far wiser investment. Among the many talented individuals you persuade to join your transcontinental journey back to Mali, one man stands out. His name will become inextricably linked with yours, his architectural vision forever changing the face of your empire. He is Abu Ishaq Ibrahim el-Seychellai, a poet and architect from the recently fallen Kingdom of Granada, in what is now Spain. You encountered him in Cairo or Mecca, a man of great learning and artistic sensibility, a refugee from the Christian reconquista that was slowly consuming Muslim Andalusia. El-Seychellai is a product of one of the most sophisticated cultures in the world. Andalusian Spain was a beacon of art, science, and poetry, a place where stunning Moorish architecture, like the Alhambra, was reaching its zenith. As a poet, he has a mastery of language and a romantic soul. As an architect, he has a deep understanding of the complex mathematics and engineering principles behind the arches, domes, and intricate tile work that define the Andalusian style. He is, in short, a catch. You are immediately drawn to him. You recognize in him a kindred spirit, a man who appreciates not just power, but beauty. You spend hours talking with him, listening to his poetry and his descriptions of the magnificent buildings of his lost homeland. You see in his skills the key to physically manifesting the new era of intellectual and cultural prestige you want to create in Mali. You make him an offer he cannot refuse. The traditional story, likely a bit of an exaggeration to emphasize your generosity, claims you gave him an immense sum, something like 40 daro to 60 DROMITHQLs of gold for his services. Whether the number is precise or not, the message is clear. You valued his talent immensely and were willing to pay for it. El-Seychellai agrees to join your caravan. For him, it must have been a surreal prospect. He was a man of the Mediterranean, of gentle hills, olive groves, and refined cities. He is now embarking on a brutal, months-long trek across the world's largest desert to build a new life in a sub-Saharan empire. His decision is a testament to your powers of persuasion and the allure of your grand vision. He is trading the memory of a glorious past for the promise of a glorious future. His presence in your caravan changes its dynamic. He is not just another scholar, he is an artist. He would have spent his time on the long journey drawing, sketching ideas, and talking with Malian builders and artisans, trying to understand their materials and techniques. He could not just import Andalusian architecture wholesale. The primary building material in your region is not stone marble, but banco, a type of adobe made from muddened rice husks. The genius of Alsatial would be his ability to fuse his sophisticated Andalusian design principles with the local materials and climate of the Sahara. This fusion of styles is a subject of great interest and some debate for architectural historians. When you look at the great mosques of Timbuktu and Gao, like the Jinghui River Mosque, you can see this blend. The towering, pyramidal minarets and the timber beams that jut out from the walls are characteristic of traditional West African Sahelian architecture. But the elegant arches, the complex internal layouts, and the very idea of a monumental, formally designed mosque show a clear North African and Andalusian influence. Alsatial did not just build in Mali. He created a new architectural language. The question historians still argue over is how much of this Sudano-Sahelian style was Alsatial's direct innovation versus an evolution that was already underway. Most agree, however, that he was a powerful catalyst, accelerating the process and introducing a new level of ambition and refinement. A charming, and possibly apocryphal, story about Alsatial illustrates his ingenuity. Upon arriving in Mali and being tasked with building a new audience chamber for you, he was faced with the challenge of creating a domed structure using earthen materials. He reportedly employed a wooden framework, which was then covered in layers of adobe. When the structure was complete, he had the wooden frame removed, leaving a magnificent, self-supporting dome. The story goes that you were so delighted with this architectural magic trick that you rewarded him with yet another lavish gift of gold. Alsatial's influence went beyond just building. As a poet and a man of letters, he became a leading figure in your court. He helped to formalize court protocols, introduced new styles of poetry, and generally brought a touch of Andalusian refinement to the royal household. He became a bridge between two worlds, a living link connecting the intellectual currents of the Mediterranean with the vibrant heart of your West African empire. By recruiting Alsatial, you did more than just hire a builder. You imported an entire aesthetic. You demonstrated that your vision for Mali was not just about accumulating wealth or military power, but about creating a civilization that could stand alongside the great cultures of the world in its artistic and intellectual achievements. He was the human embodiment of your golden age, the man who would give your ambition a physical form in the mud and sand of the Sahara. The return journey across the Sahara is a far more grueling affair than the outbound trip. The triumphant energy and boundless optimism have been replaced by a weary determination to simply get home. Your resources, both financial and material, are stretched to their absolute limit. The caravan is still massive, but it is a shadow of the glittering procession that left Neon Eye more than a year ago. Your financial situation is precarious. The spectacular spending in Cairo, the lavish gifts in Mecca, the borrowing of gold to fix the Cairene economy, and the exorbitant salaries promised to your newly recruited team of experts have bled your treasury dry. The 100 camels that once carried 300 pounds of gold each are now carrying supplies, or in some cases, are gone altogether, traded for necessities along the way. You are, for the first time in your life, experiencing a cash flow problem. This financial strain has very real, practical consequences. You can no longer afford to be the magnanimous king, handing out gold to every local chieftain you meet. At one point, your situation becomes so dire that you are forced to borrow money again, this time from a merchant in your own caravan, just to purchase basic supplies. It is a humbling moment for the man who, just months earlier, was the source of all wealth. This incident, recorded by the chroniclers, highlights the sheer, staggering cost of your expedition. You literally spent a mountain of gold. The physical toll of the journey is also beginning to show. The people are exhausted. They have been on the road for the better part of 2 years, covering thousands of miles on foot or by camel. Sickness, which was always a risk, becomes a more constant companion. The relentless sun, the poor sanitation of a mobile city, and the sheer fatigue weaken people's constitutions. Your doctors, both the ones you brought from Mali and the new recruits from Cairo, are working tirelessly, but they cannot win every battle. The caravan leaves a trail of graves in the sand, a sad and silent testament to the human cost of your grand ambition. The animals are suffering as well. Thousands of camels and horses have perished along the way, succumbing to exhaustion, dehydration, or disease. Each lost camel is a blow to your logistical capacity, forcing difficult decisions about what supplies to abandon. The mood in the caravan is grim. The songs of the griots are more often somber tales of endurance than boisterous epics of glory. It is during this difficult return that your leadership is truly tested. It is easy to be a king when you are distributing gold and receiving praise. It is much harder to lead when supplies are low and morale is flagging. You must become a source of strength for your people. You are commanding, sharing their hardships, offering words of encouragement. Your personal resilience becomes the glue that holds the weary caravan together. A fascinating and tragic event occurs on this return leg that underscores the dangers of the journey. In the city of Tekdda, a major hub for copper mining, you receive news from a messenger who has ridden hard from Niamey. There has been a military conflict. The city of Gao, a vital trading center on the Niger-Bendenda, somewhat rebellious vassal state within your empire, has been conquered by one of your leading generals, Mandia. On one hand, this is good news. Our rebellious city has been brought firmly under imperial control. But it also means you must divert your already exhausted caravan to go to Gao to formally accept its submission. It is a political necessity that adds hundreds of miles and several weeks to your journey. Historians debate the timing of this conquest. Was it a pre-planned military campaign that you had authorized before you left? Or was it an opportunistic move by an ambitious general, taking advantage of your absence? The latter seems unlikely, given the structure of your empire. The consensus is that the conquest of Gao was part of your long-term imperial strategy. However, the timing of its completion created a logistical and personal headache for you on your return. You arrived in Gao a weary, travel-stained king. You accept the submission of the city and take the king's two sons as royal hostages back to your court in Niamey, a standard practice to ensure future loyalty. But the diversion has cost you dearly in time and resources. The long, hard road home has just gotten longer and harder. The contrast between the journey out and the journey back is stark. The outward journey was a performance, a projection of power and wealth. The return journey is a struggle, a testament to human endurance. You are no longer the untouchable king of gold. You are a leader guiding his tired, depleted people through the final, brutal stretch of a marathon. The glory has faded, only the grit remains. As your weary caravan makes its final push towards the familiar lands of the Malian heartland, something remarkable is happening in the world you left behind. Your journey, particularly the stop in Cairo, has ignited the imagination of the entire Mediterranean and Middle Eastern world. You are no longer just a king. You have become a legend, a story told in the bazaars of Damascus, the ports of Tunis, and the trading houses of Venice. The legend is, of course, all about the gold. The stories that travel back along the trade routes are wildly exaggerated, each retelling adding another layer of fantastic detail. The 60,000 people in your caravan become 100,000. The tons of gold you carried become literal mountains of it. Storytellers speak of you as a mythical figure, a king from a land where gold is as common as dirt, where the rivers run with molten treasure and the palaces are paved with nuggets. You have become the Golden King, an almost folkloric character. This explosion of rumor and legend has a very real and lasting consequence. It puts Mali on the map. Literally. Before your head, European and Arab maps of Africa were vague, speculative affairs. The interior of West Africa was often labeled terra incognita, or filled with illustrations of mythical beasts. Geographers knew there was a powerful kingdom somewhere south of the Sahara that was the source of the gold that trickled north. But its name, location, and nature were a mystery. Your journey changes everything. The sheer, undeniable economic impact you had on Cairo provides concrete proof of your kingdom's immense wealth. The stories of your piety and the sophistication of your court provide evidence of a powerful, organized civilization. Cartographers, hungry for new information, begin to update their maps. The most famous example of this is the Catalan Atlas of 1375, created about 50 years after your pilgrimage. It is one of the most important world maps of the medieval period. And there, in the section depicting West Africa, the map maker, Abraham Cresques, drew a figure of a king. The king is seated on a throne, wearing a crown, holding a golden scepter in one hand and, most famously, a huge, solid gold nugget in the other. Next to the figure is a caption. This black lord is called Masmeli, lord of the Negroes of Guinea. This king is the richest and most noble lord of all this region on account of the abundance of gold which is gathered in his land. This image is a watershed moment. For the first time, a European map depicts a West African ruler not as a savage or a caricature, but as a legitimate and powerful monarch, the equal of any European king. You, Mansa Musa, have become the face of African wealth and power to the entire European world. That single image, reproduced and copied on other maps, would shape the European perception of West Africa for the next century. The legends also have a powerful effect on the world of commerce. Merchants in North Africa and Southern Europe, hearing these tales, become even more desperate to establish direct trade links with your empire. The trans-Saharan trade, which was already ancient and profitable, gets a massive stimulus package of pure high. The demand for West African gold and the goods it could buy intensifies. However, there is a historical debate about the long-term consequences of this newfound fame. While it brought prestige and stimulated trade, it also painted a giant golden target on your back. The legend of Mansa Musa's endless gold was a powerful lure. Some historians argue that this intense focus on West Africa's wealth, sparked by your journey, was a significant factor in motivating the Portuguese and other European powers to begin exploring the African coast a century later. They were looking for a way to bypass the trans-Saharan trade routes and get to the source of the gold themselves. In this interpretation, your grand public relations campaign, designed to bring your empire glory, may have inadvertently sown the seeds of future colonial ambitions. It is a classic case of a short-term triumph leading to long-term, unforeseen challenges. De QWERTY, little-known byproduct of your legend, is the Mansa Musa brand. For decades after your death, any powerful figure or sign of wealth from deep within Africa was often attributed to you or your descendants. Your name became a shorthand for fabulously wealthy African king. You created a brand identity for your empire that was so powerful, it outlived the empire itself. As you finally crossed the border from the deep desert back into the familiar territory of the Sahara, you are unaware of the global phenomenon you have become. You are just a tired king, happy to be home. You have no idea that your name is being whispered in a dozen languages thousands of miles away, that your face is being drawn on the world's most sophisticated maps, and that the story of your golden pilgrimage has already escaped your control and entered the realm of myth. You left Mali to see the world, but in the process, you made the world see Mali. The final leg of your journey feels like a dream. After the brutal, monotonous landscapes of the Sahara, the sight of the first baobab tree, the smell of the damp earth near the Niger River, and the familiar sounds of the Mo-Inkil language are a balm to the soul. As your caravan approaches the major cities of your empire, first Gao, then Timbuktu, and finally, the capital Niamey, the news of your return spreads like a bushfire. People pour out from the towns and villages to welcome you home. The reception is rapturous. The weariness of the journey melts away, replaced by the sheer joy of arrival. The people see not just their king, but a hero returning from an epic quest. They see the new faces in your entourage, the pale-skinned architects from Andalusia, the stern-faced scholars from Cairo, the turbaned merchants from the north, and they sense that you have brought the world back with you. The story of your refusal to bow to the Sultan, of your incredible generosity, of your pious completion of the Hajj has, of course, reached home, likely embellished even further. You return not just as a king, but as a living legend, your prestige magnified 100-fold. Your entry into Timbuktu is a particularly significant moment. This dusty city on the bend of the Niger River is already an important center for the Sultan gold trade, but you have new, grander plans for it. You ride through the narrow, sandy streets, but you are not just seeing what is there, you are seeing what could be there. You see the site where a great new mosque will rise, the place where a new university will be established, the neighborhoods where your newly recruited scholars will live and work. You are greeted by the city's leaders, the merchants in the Imas. You present to them the new talent you have brought back. You introduce Abu Ishaq al-Saysholai, the Andalusian poet-architect, and you can imagine the mixture of awe and skepticism on their faces. This foreigner, they might think, is going to teach us, whose ancestors have been building with earth for centuries. But your authority is absolute. You announce your plans for a new royal residence, a new congregational mosque, the Jingyu Reba Mosque, and new schools. You are not asking for permission. You are declaring the dawn of a new age for the city. One of the first projects you commission is a palace for yourself in Timbuktu. It is here that al-Saysholai first demonstrates his genius for blending styles. The palace, now lost to time, was said to be a marvel of burnt brick and adobe, with elegant reception halls and decorative features unlike anything seen before in the region. It served as a proof of concept, a demonstration to the local artisans that the new architectural ideas you have imported are not just possible, but beautiful. But your welcome home is not just about celebration in new projects. There is also the business of re-establishing governance. You have been gone for years. You meet with your brother, who has been ruling as your regent. You receive reports on the state of the empire, on harvests, on trade, on minor rebellions that were quashed in your absence. You must seamlessly transition back into your role as the ultimate authority, picking up the reins of power that you had temporarily entrusted to another. This is a delicate political moment, and your successful return to power is a testament to the stability of your empire and the loyalty of your family. A particularly poignant and historically debated moment is your reunion with the two young princes of Gao whom you had taken as hostages. According to some accounts, you had them educated in your court, and upon your return, you personally oversaw their continued instruction. One of these boys, Ali Kolan, would later escape and found the Sunni dynasty, which would eventually supplant your own dynasty as rule over the region. There is a deep irony here that historians love to point out. In your effort to secure your empire by educating a potential rival, you may have inadvertently trained the man whose lineage would one day lead to its downfall. It is a powerful reminder that the consequences of our actions often ripple through history in ways we can never predict. Finally, you return to your capital, Niamey. The welcome here is the grandest of all. It is a true homecoming. You return to your palace, the familiar comforts of your court, the sound of your personal griot singing the story of your epic journey, which has now become the newest and most important chapter in the history of your people. You have circled the known world and come back home, but you are not the same man who left. You have a new vision, a new purpose. The pilgrimage is over, but the work of building a golden age is just beginning. The immense cost, the hardship, the exhaustion, it was all an investment. And now, back in the heart of your empire, it is time to see it pay off. Your return from the Hajj marks the beginning, not the end, of your most significant work. The journey was the prelude. Now the symphony begins. The final years of your reign are dedicated to transforming the cities of your empire, especially Timbuktu, into world-class centers of learning, piety, and commerce. You have the vision, you have the money, or at least access to the endless stream of gold from your mines, and now you have the imported talent. The golden age of Timbuktu is about to dawn, and you are its architect. Your first and most visible projects are architectural. Under the guidance of Abu Ishaq al-Sayshalai, a building boom transforms the skyline of Timbuktu and Gao. The most famous of these projects is the Jing-Yui Reber Mosque. You commission al-Sayshalai to design and oversee its construction. He and the local Malian masons create a masterpiece of Sudono-Sahelian architecture. It is a colossal structure made of earth, straw, and wood, yet it possesses an undeniable elegance and grandeur. Its iconic pyramidal minaret becomes a symbol of the city itself. The construction of this mosque is a massive public works project, employing thousands of local laborers and artisans, and serving as a real-world university for teaching the new blended architectural style. Alongside the Great Mosque, you fund the construction of the Sankor Madrasa, which you envision as the heart of a new university. This is perhaps your most enduring legacy. You do not just build a school, you create an institution. You install the scholars you brought back from Cairo and Mecca as its first professors. You provide them with immense resources to establish a librarian to begin teaching. The curriculum at Sankor is remarkably broad. It includes not just Quranic studies and Islamic law, but also astronomy, mathematics, rhetoric, history, and medicine. Students come from all over the Islamic world to study there, drawn by the promise of royal patronage and the chance to learn from renowned scholars. Timbuktu begins to earn a reputation not just as a city of gold, but as a city of knowledge. A popular saying emerges: salt comes from the north, gold from the south, but the word of God and the treasures of wisdom are from Timbuktu. This intellectual flourishing has a profound effect on the local culture. A vibrant book trade develops in the city. Scribes and copyists are in high demand, meticulously transcribing classic works of Islamic scholarship and creating new ones. The private libraries of Timbuktu's scholars become legendary, some containing thousands of manuscripts. This reverence for the written word is a direct result of your patronage. The fascinating and somewhat debated aspect of this era is the degree of academic freedom that existed. While the core of the curriculum was traditional Islamic scholarship, the inclusion of sciences like astronomy and the vibrant intellectual debates that took place suggest a relatively open intellectual environment. Historians still study the surviving Timbuktu manuscripts to understand the full scope of the intellectual world you fostered. Was it a rigid, orthodox institution, or was there space for philosophical inquiry and debate? The evidence points to a surprisingly dynamic and tolerant atmosphere, where different schools of Islamic thought coexisted and argued with one another. Your projects are not limited to Timbuktu. You commission similar, if smaller scale, mosques and schools in other key cities of your empire. You also focus on infrastructure. You work to improve the safety and efficiency of the trans-Saharan trade routes, establishing more secure wells and patrol routes. You regularize the system of taxation, using the administrative knowledge you brought back from Egypt to create a more stable and predictable source of revenue for the state. You are building not just a cultural legacy, but a stronger, more resilient empire. One of the more mundane, yet crucial, legacies of your reign is the popularization of burnt brick construction. Alsatialist techniques showed how to create more durable, permanent structures than traditional adobe alone. This small technological transfer had a huge long-term impact on the architecture of the entire Sahara region, a quiet innovation that was just as important as the grand mosques. As you grow older, you can look around and see the physical manifestation of your life's work. The skyline of your cities has been transformed. The call to prayer rings out from minarets that did not exist when you were a young man. The markets are filled with traders speaking a dozen different languages. The schools are filled with students debating fine points of law and philosophy. You did not just bring gold to the world, you brought the world's knowledge back to your people. You created a cosmopolitan, sophisticated, and intellectually vibrant civilization in the heart of West Africa. The legend of your golden pilgrimage might be what made you famous, but it is the quiet, patient work of building Timbuktu's golden age that is your true masterpiece. You proved that an empire's greatness is measured not just by the weight of its gold, but by the weight of its books. Your epic journey and the subsequent golden age you ushered in were not contained within the borders of your empire. The ripples from your pilgrimage spread far and wide, having a profound and lasting impact on the relationship between Africa and the rest of the world, particularly Europe. While you were busy building mosques and universities, the story of your wealth was planting a seed in the European imagination that would grow into an obsession. The most direct long-term effect of your hajj was the intensification of the European desire for West African gold. The tales of your wealth, solidified by the image of you on the Catalan atlas holding a giant gold nugget, confirmed what European merchants had long suspected. Africa was a source of unimaginable riches. This was not just a matter of greed. It was a matter of economic necessity. Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries was suffering from a gold famine. Its own mines were depleted, and the flow of gold from the east was controlled by rival powers like the Mamluks and the Ottoman Turks. Your journey highlighted a potential new source. If only they could find a way to get to it directly. This desire to bypass the middleman, the North African Berber and Arab traders who controlled the trans-Saharan routes, became a major driving force behind the Age of Discovery. A century after your pilgrimage, Portuguese navigators, under the patronage of Prince Henry the Navigator, began to systematically explore the Atlantic coast of Africa. Their motivations were complex, a mixture of religious zeal, scientific curiosity, and political ambition, but the quest for gold was undeniably a primary objective. They were, in a very real sense, searching for the sea route to the land of Mansa Musa. When the Portuguese finally reached the coast of modern-day Ghana in the 1472 and found local Akan peoples willing to trade gold, they named the region the Gold Coast. It was the partial fulfillment of a century-long dream that your story had helped to create. Your display of wealth had acted as a giant advertisement for your region, an advertisement that had unintended and, ultimately, tragic consequences. This connection between your journey and the subsequent Age of Discovery is a major topic of discussion among historians. Some argue for a direct causal link, stating that the Musa myth was a key motivator for figures like Prince Henry. Others argue for a more indirect influence, suggesting that your story was just one of many factors that contributed to Europe's outward expansion. The consensus, however, is that your pilgrimage fundamentally and permanently altered Europe's perception of West Africa, transforming it from a mysterious void into a tangible and incredibly valuable prize. It placed your homeland firmly in the cautious of European ambition. Another long-term impact was on the world of scholarship and cartography. The information your journey provided about the political geography, the trade routes, and the cultural sophistication of West Africa was a treasure trove for Arab and European scholars. It helped to create a more accurate and detailed understanding of the world. However, this knowledge was a double-edged sword. The same maps that celebrated your power also provided the practical information needed for others to eventually challenge that power. The detailed maps showing the location of Timbuktu and the Niger River were, in later centuries, used by European explorers and colonizers to plan their own incursions into the interior. A more subtle, and perhaps more positive, long-term impact was the prestige your journey brought to the Islamic faith in Africa. Your grand, pious, and intellectually curious pilgrimage demonstrated to the wider Islamic world that a truly powerful and legitimate Islamic civilization was flourishing south of the Sahara. This helped to integrate West Africa more fully into the Dar al-Islam, the House of Islam, encouraging the flow of scholars, traders, and ideas in both directions for centuries to come. You cemented the reputation of Timbuktu as a pearl of the Islamic world, a reputation it would hold for hundreds of years. As you look back on your life from the perspective of your final years, you could not possibly have foreseen all these long-range consequences. You could not have imagined that your act of faith would inspire armored ships to sail down the coast of your continent, or that the map celebrating your reign would one day be used by armies of conquest. Your world was one of camel caravans and desert oases, of personal honor and dynastic power. You played the game of 14th century geopolitics masterfully, but the story you told, the legend you created, took on a life of its own, echoing down the centuries and helping to shape a future world that you would never know. Your golden splash in the pond of history created ripples that eventually became tidal waves. As your long and eventful life draws to a close around the year 1337, you can look back on a legacy of almost unimaginable success. You inherited a powerful kingdom and transformed it into a legendary empire. You etched the name of Mali onto the consciousness of the world. You fulfilled your spiritual duties with a piety that impressed sultans and scholars. And you left behind cities adorned with magnificent mosques and universities, seeding a cultural golden age that would flourish for generations. The empire you leave behind is at the absolute zenith of its power and prestige. Its borders stretch for thousands of miles, from the Atlantic coast deep into the Sahara. Its trade routes are secure, and its treasury, despite your legendary spending, is constantly replenished by the inexhaustible gold fields. The bureaucratic and administrative reforms you implemented have made the state more efficient and resilient. The intellectual life you fostered in Timbuktu has made it a beacon of learning. By all measures, you have been one of the most effective and impactful rulers in all of history. But empires, like all human creations, are mortal. Their light shines brightly for a time, but eventually, it must fade. The story of the Mali Empire after your death is one of a long, slow decline, a gradual unraveling of the great tapestry you wove so skillfully. Your immediate successors, your son Maganai and later your brother Suleiman, managed to maintain the empire's power for a time. Suleiman, in particular, is a capable ruler who continues your tradition of strong, centralized governance. The famous traveler Ibn Battuta visited your court during Suleiman's reign, about a decade after your death, and his writings paint a picture of a realm that is still impressively powerful, orderly, and safe. He marveled at the absolute security of the roads and the profound sense of justice that pervaded the society you had built. Your legacy was, for a time, in good hands. However, the seeds of decline were already present. The empire was vast, containing a multitude of different ethnic groups and vassal states. Holding such a diverse realm together required a continuous display of strong leadership from the center. After Suleiman, a series of weaker, less effective Manses came to the throne. Internal disputes over the succession began to plague the royal court, sapping its strength and distracting it from the challenges on its borders. The external threats grew. To the north, the Tuareg nomads of the desert, who you had dominated, began to reassert their power, raiding the trade routes and eventually sacking and occupying Timbuktu itself in the mid-15th century. To the east, the vassal state of Cairo, the very city you had brought to heel on your return from Mecca, began to grow in strength. The Sunni dynasty, founded by the descendants of the Gao prince you had taken as a hostage, turned from a vassal into a powerful rival. Under the leadership of the formidable Sani Ali in the late 15th century, the rising Songhai Empire would conquer the old heartlands of Mali, including Timbuktu and Jen, effectively ending Mali's time as the dominant power in the region. The question of why the Mali Empire declined is a classic historical debate. Was it the internal weakness of later rulers? Was it the external pressure from rising powers like the Songhai? Was it the shifting patterns of trade, especially as the Portuguese began to divert the flow of gold to the coast? The answer, as is almost always the case in history, is a combination of all these factors. No single cause can explain the fall of such a mighty empire. It was a slow erosion, a death by 1,000 cuts. Yet your personal legend endured, long after your empire had crumbled. The story of your golden pilgrimage became Mali's most famous export, a tale that transcended the political realities of its decline. Even as the empire shrank back to its original Malinki heartland, the name Mansa Musa was still spoken with awe in Europe and the Middle East. You had achieved a kind of historical immortality that was separate from the fate of your political creations. Sitting here, at the end of our story, we are left with this dual legacy. The empire you ruled is gone, its palaces turned to dust, its borders erased from the map. But the ideas you stood for, the fusion of faith and knowledge, the celebration of art and architecture, the very idea of a powerful and sophisticated African civilization, live on. Your story is a powerful reminder that history is not just a tale of rising and falling empires. It is the story of individuals whose actions, for good or ill, create ripples that are felt for centuries. You were the richest man in the world, but your most valuable legacy was not the gold you gave away, but the story you left behind. The journey is over. The great caravan has reached its final destination, and the dust has settled back into the earth. The sounds of the 60,000 travelers have faded, leaving only the soft hum of the night. The story of the Golden King is finished, a tale spun from golden faith, ambition and sand. Now the story melts away, becoming part of the quiet landscape of your mind as you drift deeper into rest. The weight of the gold is gone. The heat of the desert is gone. All that remains is the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing, a quiet and peaceful cadence. You are no longer in the bustling markets of Cairo or the sacred spaces of Mecca. You are in that soft, warm place just before sleep, a place of peace and stillness. Let the echoes of the story become a gentle lullaby, carrying you softly, slowly, into the deep and restful quiet of a good night's dream. Let the world and its histories fade away, until there is only you, and the peaceful, silent dark,